that bless thee, and curse him that curseth thee, and in thee shall all the families of the earth be blessed. Now, you say, what's that about? Well, what he's saying in there is that through Abraham is going to come a blessing that will affect all the world, all of history. So what he's saying there is the same thing as in Genesis 3:16, where God said that the seed of the woman would come and bruise Satan's head. This is another prophecy, and it's saying that this seed of the woman that was going to come to bruise Satan's head would come through Abraham's line. Right? So now we can trace the seed of the woman from Adam and Eve right down through Noah, right down, and we know that it's going to come through the line of Abraham. And so we've got this particular blessing on Abraham and on his seed, on those that follow up from Abraham, right? God says, I will make of thee a great nation, I will bless thee, and make thy name great, and thou shalt be a blessing, and I will bless them that bless thee, and curse him that curseth thee. It's still true. And in thee shall all the families of the earth be blessed. So through Abraham was going to come the seed of the woman. Now, Abraham builds an altar and offers sacrifices. Genesis 12:8. The Lord appeared to Abraham and he made a covenant with Abraham. And it says, and he, it's talking about Abraham, removed, this is verse 8, removed from thence unto a mountain on the east of Bethel, and pitched his tent, having Bethel on the west and Hai on the east, and there he builded an altar unto the Lord, and called upon the name of the Lord. So we see in the sacrificial system, Abraham builds an altar, like Noah, and so this idea of building an altar for the sacrifice becomes more and more a part of the doctrine. And Abraham offers sacrifices. And so we say, well, I wonder what the next step will be. And we look ahead and we come to Genesis 22. And this is an integral part of this teaching, Genesis 22. And it says, and it came to pass after these things that God did tempt Abraham. Now, it's not tempting in the sense of tempting him to sin. It's to test him. And said unto him, Abraham, and he said, Behold, here I am. And he said, Take now thy son, thine only son Isaac, whom thou lovest, and get thee into the land of Moriah, and offer him there for a burnt offering upon one of the mountains which I will tell thee of. Now, this is a very interesting story. Abraham is an old man, and he can't have children because Sarah, his wife, is barren. She can't have children. And so after a long time, he takes another wife, Hagar, an Egyptian, and he has a child to her, Ishmael. But God says to him, no, you are going to have a son to Sarah, your wife, and this son is going to be very special. And so God says to Abraham, after this son is grown up, he's not just a little boy, he's a young man, and God says to him, Take now thy son, thine only son Isaac. Now that's very interesting because in truth he's not his only son, but God has said that God only recognised one of these sons. He doesn't recognise Ishmael, who's Isaac's older brother. He only recognises Isaac. So he said, Take thy only son Isaac, whom thou lovest, and get thee into the land of Moriah. Now you can imagine Isaac is a growing up young man, his father is probably 120 odd years old, 118 perhaps years old. He's got this one son who he loves, who he adores, who's all of life to him, and everything he's got is going to go to that son. And God says, take now thy son, thine only son Isaac, whom thou lovest, and get thee into the land of Moriah, and offer him there for a burnt offering upon one of the mountains which I will tell thee of. And Abraham rose up early in the morning and saddled his ass and took 2 of his young men with him and Isaac his son and clave the wood, that means he cut up the wood for the burnt offering, and rose up and went unto the place of which God had told him. Right, and then on the 3rd day, so it takes them a long time to get there, Abraham lifted up his eyes and saw the place afar off. And Abraham said unto his young men, abide ye here with the ass, and I and the lad. Now this word lad doesn't mean a little boy. It means a fairly grown up boy, at least 16, probably closer to 20. Will go yonder and worship and come again to you. And Abraham took the wood of the burnt offering and laid it upon Isaac his son. So he's big enough to carry this big load of wood. And he took the fire in his hand and a knife, and they went both of them together. And Isaac spake unto Abraham his father and said, my father. And he said, here am I, my son. And he said, behold the fire and the wood, but where is the lamb for a burnt offering? And Abraham said, my son, God will provide himself a lamb for a burnt offering. So they went both of them together. And they came to the place which God had told him of, and Abraham built an altar there. So he builds an altar and laid the wood in order, and bound Isaac his son, and laid him on the altar upon the wood. And Abraham stretched forth his hand and took the knife to slay his son. And the angel of the Lord called unto him out of heaven and said, Abraham, Abraham. And he said, here am I. And he said, lay not thine hand upon the lad, neither do thou anything unto him, for now I know that thou fearest God, seeing thou hast not withheld thy son, thine only son, from me. And Abraham lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, behind him a ram caught in a thicket by his horns. And Abraham went and took the ram and offered him for a burnt offering in the stead of his son. And Abraham called the name of the place Jehovah-Jireh, as it is said to this day, in the mount of the Lord it shall be seen. So we've got the story of Abraham and Isaac, and we've read it in the scriptures there, and we'll leave it there, and we'll come back to it in the next lecture that we do, and we'll start from there, and we'll look at this story of Abraham and Isaac, and we'll find out what we see in it. All right, we'll stop there.